Welcome to Retirement Straight Talk with Paul and William, featuring award-winning financial advisor and former host of the Sunday Money Show, News Talk 1010, Paul Baraka, and his associate advisor, William Baraka. Creating and keeping wealth does not need to be complicated. Paul and William will cut through confusing and contradictory financial advice to give you the real facts to help you invest better and enjoy a worry-free retirement. The views and opinions expressed in this video may not necessarily reflect those of IPC Securities Corporation. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.
And welcome everyone to episode number 22 of Retirement Straight Talk with Paul and William. I'm Paul, the good-looking guy. On the other part of the screen is William. And we're here to talk today about everyone's favorite topic, which is estate planning and 5 estate planning mistakes. And of course, estate planning, right, Will? How many people procrastinate and put it off? We'll talk about it later. I know it has to be done. We'll do it when we have time. Years go by. Nothing happens. This is more common than not.
It's more common than not. There's a survey done in 2020 that said 56% of Canadians don't even have a will. And then if you look, there's other surveys showing that the number of Canadians who have a will that's seriously outdated is much higher than that as well. So that's the first place to get started. Make sure you have an updated will. Make sure you have one at all, because if you don't provide instructions via will, the government will do it for you. In Ontario, it's going to be the Ontario Succession Law Reform Act. You don't want that. You don't want the government deciding how your assets are distributed. So make sure you have a will. That's step one. Now let's go into the 5 big common mistakes.
Yeah, and here's something: people treating family members differently. Now, for example, maybe you help one of your children. There are different stages of life. You help them out financially to buy a house or help their kids or whatever, and you don't do the other one the same. So you
may not just like one of your kids as much as the other.
Well, hopefully not, but that can happen.
I mean, also another common thing is maybe like one of your kids gave you a lot of help when you were elderly and needed like health care, and they like help look after you a lot more than another kid. So there could be various reasons why you want to treat a kid differently in your will.
Yeah, some children might have a disability, either physical or learning disability. They need more time and effort. But the problem is when you treat families differently, when it gets down to that reading of the will and one or more child gets more than the other ones, that can create problems. And where siblings don't talk to each other anymore. And this happens. This happens. Especially when spouses are involved. Worst case scenario, siblings sue each other unless you take care of this ahead of time. And this is a common thread of what we're going to talk about today. The key is communication between the parents and the children about what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Absolutely. So if you do want to do that, if you do want to treat your kids differently, make sure you have that conversation beforehand to explain the reasons why.
And it's best to do it without, it's not best. Don't do it with the children's spouses. It must be done just with the immediate family. Very key. Secondly, passing, a lot of people have the family cottage, worth a lot of money these days. My gosh, things have gone up significantly. And maybe you have 3 kids. You leave it all to the 3 children. They all have it equally. But maybe one child or more, they really enjoy it much more than the others. And what about this? If you leave it to 3 children, I'm guessing that not all of them can actually afford it. And one of them or 2 of them may not be able to handle the upkeep, the taxes, the utilities and so forth. They can't afford to pay their fair share.
It's rare for the next generation to be fully in line on this issue.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're in different financial situations. They have different sentimental attachments to the cottage. It's rare for everyone to be on the same page there.
And then you have issues like, well, who gets the best weekends? What about the work? Oh, we got to the cottage and my brother left it a mess. things like that come up. And again, same things happen. Kids don't speak to each other, sibling rivalries, and it can make a happy family a very unhappy family. And that's no parent wants that.
Also no, definitely not. There's also things, Paul, as simple as like if there's a repair needed at the cottage, a renovation, who's going to pay for it? How is it going to be done? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Mistake number 3, not talking to your kids about your money. Now, there used to be an old adage, a bit old school. I don't know if I should say that. It's rude to talk about money in politics. Why? Here's common things. It's not the kids' business. They will get whatever left. Well, right now, if you're 65 years old, a very good chance one of you is going to be around till your mid-90s. Very good chance. That's statistically proven. You're 95, your kids are 70. Do you really think your kids are probably going to need your money at age 70? Probably not. When they're probably going to need it is when they're 35, when they got a mortgage, when they got growing kids. It's likely not. Your kids are not going to need that money when they're 70 years old. So again, now, of course, a lot of parents may not want to leave their kids money because at that stage, maybe they're not sure they have enough themselves. And that's where planning comes in, where you want to do the wealth planning with your advisor or wherever to see how much you have. Do you have enough to live for yourself? Can you afford to give to your kids? And if you can, probably better to give it to them earlier when they really need the help. Otherwise, kids can get a little angry down the road. Imagine that your parents die and you realize they have so much money, way more than they ever needed, and that's not uncommon. And the kids think, I could have really used this help when I was struggling, when I was 38, and was having trouble paying the mortgage, things like that. It can make the kids upset and angry down the road. No one wants that. So again, key communication, right? Sit down with your kids, explain to them the money situation, explain them what you're planning and why you're explaining it. With all the kids at the same time, no spouses. You do that, that's going to 90% take care of things. Another number 4 is when you have a second spouse, which of course is not uncommon today at all. That's where things can become very delicate, especially with the children. You don't want it's not too uncommon where people get remarried and they leave the majority, if not almost all of the assets to their new spouse. Hey, what about the kids? Should there be a provision for the old spouse? I mean, every situation is different. But again, you really want to make sure you have pre-planning around ownership titles, prenuptial agreements. Do you have the right beneficiaries on the investment accounts, the life insurance? This can often go unnoticed for years where, oh gosh, we still have that beneficiary designation there. That's not right anymore. These things, you want to make sure you do them and delicately and carefully. And the last mistake people make involves our favorite topic, right, William? And that's taxes. And here's where, people often, they say, don't worry about it. Whatever left over will be left over. But, again, if you want to leave the cottage to the kids, well, who's going to pay the tax on it? Do they have the cash to pay the tax on the unrealized capital gain? Do they have to sell some assets? Could you imagine right now, markets are down right now. Real estate markets are down, stock markets are down. Well, all of a sudden you need money to pay taxes on a cottage. You have to sell assets at a discount. Now, again, people have worked their whole lives to build up those assets. Do you want to sell them at a discount, be forced to sell them at a discount? Not the best idea. So again, you want to make sure you do some calculations on taxes and determine where that money is going to come from. Oftentimes, insurance is the easiest, most tax efficient way to deal with things. It provides the exact amount of money you want, tax-free, exactly when you need it. So I think that's most of it for today, William.
Yeah, let's wrap it up today, Paul.
Okay, so our next Retirement Straight Talk next week will be some ideas on investing that you probably haven't thought of. Got some interesting things we're going to go over that. Want to make sure you listen in. Of course, if you like what you heard today, hey, subscribe, rate us, say something nice always, of course. And hey, if you have some other people who might be interested in what we're talking about, pass it on to them. And of course, if we made you think about some things about your retirement and investment plans and you want to talk with us, send us an email, info@westendwealth.com, info@westendwealth.com. By the way, if you have any topic suggestions, you say, hey, I'd like you guys to talk about this topic or that, send an email to the same place, info@westendwealth.com. We'll see you next week, everyone.
This podcast was brought to you by West End Wealth Planning, an award-winning wealth planning practice catering to small and medium-sized business owners and to those looking to create a worry-free retirement for themselves and their families. To learn more, go to westendwealth.com. Don't forget to rate this podcast and subscribe to Retirement Straight Talk with Paul and William by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts.